And welcome back. We have another great interview for you, this time with Eric Waisman. Eric, it runs jaunty.org. Jaunty.org is a gym for your social life, which I think is a really cool concept. And I'm going to let Eric explain what that means. So Eric, what is jaunty.org?
You know, I think you did it. You did it well, Michael. That's it. It's literally a place. And thanks for having me, by the way, where you can come in and practice your verbal fluency. You can practice conversation. You can practice public speaking. You can practice storytelling. We create some fun little exercises, just like workouts at the gym, but for social skills, everything from body language to flirting to sales, to negotiation, right, to assertiveness training, you name it.
And so what make people feel like they need a gym for their social life? Because I imagine a lot of people watching are probably hearing this and being like, oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. So what are some of the things some of the challenges that people have in conversations?
Yeah, well, especially recently, I think all of our social skills have atrophied a bit. Being at home 24/7, maybe with one person and our dog and cat, we're finding people are better at speaking to their pets than they are with people. But having a mask on our face for the last 2 years with that type of barrier and just not engaging as much as we used to. A lot of people forgot how to go through conversation and give themselves permission to speak with others. And so we're here to get people back on the horse, so to speak, so they can have some social freedom.
Oh, fascinating. Yeah. And of course, I've just been up here on the stage at the top of the world for the last 2 years. So I totally know what you're talking about. But so even before the pandemic, there were certainly people who were nervous about starting conversations and had some social anxiety and some challenges. And why do you think people are so nervous about starting those conversations and kicking off a connection with someone?
Yeah, great question. I mean, it's a mix of personality traits and upbringing and experiences or culture, right? And so some people are more prone to absorbing that social anxiety and nervousness, wherever that might come from. I mean, it can be anything from our ancestors, our tribal ancestors having a higher chance of getting killed from another tribe, right? Versus someone who's been safe up in the top of the hill for years. I mean, we don't know why self-consciousness or neuroticism and things like that affect us differently, but some people are more prone. As most people know, there's a scale of extroversion as well. So some people have a little bit more of a dopamine hit or a little bit more of a feeling of fulfillment by speaking with people and connecting with people. So since they were younger, they kind of sought that and got more comfortable with it, and some didn't, right? And so people from all walks of life, I think, can get more comfortable with people and learn how to enjoy it and find their favorite ways of enjoying it. But yeah, I mean, we get nervous because if we get rejected, it feels like we have lowered ourselves and our social status, when that's not really the case, but that's our fear.
So for someone who is a little bit anxious talking to people, what are some things you'd recommend for them to be able to, enjoy the conversations and not be quite so anxious about the process?
Yeah, great question. I think everyone can find their favorite way of socializing. So if I started speaking to you about, hey, I'm trying to get motivated every day, and I know about your daily motivation, and your eyes would light up, and you could actually purposely lead a conversation to things that you enjoy while testing out to see if the other person enjoys it. And more often than not, you'll be able to feel happier speaking about it, look forward to bringing that up. But you can find your favorites, your favorite type of humor, your favorite type of topics, your favorite type of passions, and then your values, right? And then hobbies, and try to see if you can test the other person out, see if they like those things. And then when you find that similarity and match, you're going to be in flow a lot more, and you're going to enjoy that conversation more. And then you're going to, what we want to do is start looking back at our old conversations, the last 2 months, 3 months, and be like, oh, the last 20 people I spoke with, I laughed my butt off. I brought my favorite type of sarcasm in, and or we spoke about cryptocurrency, which I love, and I learned a lot. There's no reason the next one won't be like that. So you can use some gradual exposure as well to get more comfortable with it.
Yeah. You mentioned kind of, focusing on the positive ones. Do you think that sometimes people will focus on, they'll have 10 good conversations, one bad conversation, and then for the next 2 weeks, they're like, oh, I hope that doesn't happen again, and kind of fixate on that?
Oh, totally. I think our conscious brains fixate on the mistakes, right? If you go out to 10 restaurants and you have 9 amazing, mind-blowing experiences with service and food and company, and you loved your server, but there was one time where you just had a horrible experience, which one are you going to Yelp?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And so our mind will fixate on that. The good news is that our minds are plastic. And we can have more and more great experiences to where we start creating a belief system around, hey, conversations are fun. I'm actually enjoying meeting new people and creating those two-way streets. And it's super fulfilling to watch people get their light bulbs, their social light bulbs turned on.
Yeah, that must be so much fun. So oftentimes, sometimes the most stressful conversations are with people we think of as sort of our social betters. Maybe you're at an event and you see, oh, there's the CEO of that local company, or there's that the mayor, someone I really need to meet, but he or she, they're a big deal, and I'm just me. So how can we start a conversation with someone who feels like a big deal, so maybe you feel inadequate around? What can you do to engage with that kind of a person in a conversation? Yeah,
just picture them naked, riding a horse or something, that'll work. I really think bettering yourself and creating some motivation for yourself and creating some momentum for yourself is one way, is actually learning the skills and being really confident in things like, oh, I can say something funny in the moment. I can ask an open-ended question, or I can throw in a story. But honestly, the ninja trick, if you want to know what the ninja trick is,
ninja tricks,
and you know this, and Michael, you know this more than anyone, is you create abundance, right? So it's like if you went to one networking event and you didn't get along with someone, your mindset is still, well, I have 47 other meetings coming up, right? So if you can create abundance and surround yourself by, and sometimes up front, it's a little bit of front loading where you want to create a little bit of a system to get the amount of people to where my cup is filled, right? So, it's kind of like going on an interview. A lot of our clients are tech engineers. And what they relate to, maybe something that might be difficult for them is walking up to like someone they're super physically attractive to, or someone that, could fund their company. Yeah. Right. Or something. So those two would be like a good example in that situation. But when I want to talk about like the dating aspect with them, I think about, if you're in an interview, they have headhunters calling them all day, and they have, dozens of offers at the same time. Are you nervous on your interview? And they're like, no. I'm like, what if it's even like the CEO or the chair, and they're like, I have like 7 other offers at the same time. So you can do that with friends. You can do that with dates. You can do that with anything.
Yeah, that's a great concept. And also I kind of like we said, going back to, I know obviously joking about picturing them on a horse, but that everyone's human. It's in our constitution, in the American Constitution, we eliminated the aristocracy. There's no noble class anymore. People are people, and that's a very important thing to remember. It's just kind of, that's a person, you're a person, and what do you have to offer them? Totally. And then once you're in the conversation, what are some tricks for making that fun? Especially, sometimes once you get rolling, you find things in common. You're going, you're joking, you're great. But in those first, 4 sentences, what can you say, do, backflips, whatever? What can you say to get the conversation going on the right foot?
Yeah, I think this is where some practice comes into play, right? I think it's fun to start things off on a positive note or humor. Something you can do that's a little trick is kind of pin something on someone. Like, for instance, we joke that you're on top of the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're on this massive building overlooking everyone else. So we can pin a couple things on you that can work throughout the conversation that will make it a little bit more of a lighthearted situation. I can keep going back now to things like, oh, well, you know, Michael, you're looking down on everyone, so it doesn't really matter. Or I can say something like, well, you're the adventurous one. You're about to go parachute off the end of the building. You know, you can come up with these little things that I pinned on you that you might have started the conversation with. But also just getting really good at different tools of conversation. You know, we talked about humor, but you can also get really good at knowing the difference between open-ended and closed-ended questions, how much and how little to compliment, and you know, having a story of the day that you can bring up, something in the moment, a technique, right? And so, yeah, those first impressions are, you know, and honestly, what's going to make people really comfortable is your body language.
Okay.
Is keeping really, really open and calm body language, and people will feel more comfortable with you.
And for those who aren't familiar, what's, you know, show us the difference between open and closed body language, and kind of some simple tricks that people can take from that.
Sure. Like right now, my body language is horrible because the way my desk is set up. But what you really want is, if you think about two things, is shoulder back and head up, right? So shoulder back and head up. It's crazy because that actually kicks off your nervous system. It can raise serotonin levels. It just opens you up. And here's also something no one ever thinks about, is we are contagious, right? So we're super contagious. We can make each other's heart rate goes up and down. We can, honestly, I'm usually not this excited at 3:20. I usually have my coffee crash around here, but you pumped me up with your energy before the interview.
I have that effect on people.
So, yeah, I just absorbed that. And I'm kind of mirroring that because you were contagious to me. So if you're open, calm, and relaxed, for instance, other people will feel open, calm, and relaxed.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point. Someone's kind of going in with that energy. You know, if somebody saw me 15 minutes before the interview, I didn't have that level of energy. Actually, I was asleep because I was taking a nap 15 minutes before the interview. But then I went to get on camera, dialed it up. And part of it is that not worrying, you know, I'm thinking, oh, it's going to be recorded. What's going to happen? And what's Eric going to think of me when we're done the interview? I just went in and boom. And that's what things, you know, it gets the reaction.
You're very charismatic. You're very charismatic, and your vocal tonality is, since the first time we spoke, it was your vocal charisma really was what catches me and puts me in a good mood. So, and that's actually a little trick as well, is something you can pay attention. Find what the average individual volume is for people's voices, right? So if you walk into a room, try to figure out what the average vocal level is. And if you can go like half a decibel above, it will always be drawing other people in, and it will make people feel like you're a little more exciting than maybe you are.
Yep. Yeah. You just turn up that energy, can be very powerful. And you also mentioned open-ended versus closed-ended questions. Talk a little bit about what those are for those who are not familiar with the concept.
Yeah. So if I asked you, like, you know, hey, so Michael, what do you love doing? And you would say something like travel, let's say, right? I'm like, yeah, what are your plans for the next rest of the year? And you're like, oh, you know, I think I'm gonna do a little bit of traveling over the holidays, right? I'm gonna take a vacation and get away, you know? And so a closed-ended question is what 99% of people would ask right there, for instance. That would be like, where are you gonna go? You know? And if you think about it, the reason why someone's asking, where are you going to go? Where are you thinking about going? Where are you going to go? It's kind of a selfish question, actually, because number one, I want to find if I've been there, if I know something about that, if I can, I guess it's not selfish because the real end goal is that you connect with them and make them like you, which is actually kind of selfish, going back to that again. But instead of being like, instead of the first question being like, where are you going to go? And you're going to be like, Hawaii. And I'll be like, oh, I love Hawaii. Which island? Blah, blah, blah. Those are closed-ended questions. But instead, before I got to those details, I said something like, yeah, Michael, what is it about traveling that you feel you need right now? Right. Now that's a question. That's where you're going to, you know, what is it about traveling that you're excited about or you love? You're going to be like, oh, you know, what do I love about travel? Yeah, I want to, the culture, seeing perspective of other people living and exploring and pioneering, you know, new areas, whatever it might be, trying new food, right? I'm going to learn a lot more about you that way. Later on, I can ask you where you're going to go and create that kind of selfish similarity, me too connection. But you want to have that dynamic, like open-ended, empathetic type of question, and then you can go into similarity, and then you can go to humor, and then you can go back to open-ended, right? And so you can create these cool dynamics in conversation.
Yeah, that's great. And the questions are great, especially people who are maybe more anxious and more introverted, because if you get someone talking about themselves, they're going to feel like it's a great conversation, because who doesn't love talking about themselves?
Right, exactly. If you can listen a little bit more than you're speaking, you'll be just fine.
So what are some of the biggest mistakes you see people make in conversations?
Well, I think the biggest mistake is not starting the ones you want to. You know, those are I'd rather you live a life of like, oh, wells than what ifs. It's the what ifs that really kill people. What if I said hi to that favorite author I saw? What if, you know, so I think that's the number one mistake, is that people are doing nothing socially, and they don't realize they can better their social life, you know? So I think interviewer mode is a mistake we see a lot, where people ask question after question after question, right? So in that like travel example, it'd be like, where are you going to go? Cool. What are you going to do? Okay, cool. How long are you going to be there? Oh, cool. Who are you going with? Right. So you walk away from those conversations where one person feels like they gave up a lot of information, and the other one, but they didn't learn about the other person as well. It didn't feel like a two-way street. So I think that's a big mistake. People don't open up enough doors so you can build wider rapport and then build deep rapport.
And you're talking about starting the conversations. So, you know, we talked a bit about starting conversations with someone you feel inadequate about, but I want to kind of dive into that a little bit more. You know, you're at an event and you find yourself, you know, you're next to the person you want to talk to, whether it's the attractive individual of your chosen gender, or an ideal client, or the CEO, or whoever, and you're there, you've got the opening, they're not talking to anyone. What do you say to turn that opening into a conversation? What are those first words?
It's the best way is the truthful, honest, direct, straight shooter, you know, badass way. Okay. I think it's basically, I think that's probably I don't want to say the best way. I think that's kind of the most truthful way. Okay. Right. To where you would walk up to them and be like, hey, you know what? I saw you over here. It looked like you had a minute. I know you're busy. You're the CEO of XYZ, but I wanted to say hi and introduce myself. I'm Eric. You know, what has been great about the event so far for you, you know, or you can go into something, you know, about them. Right. Just direct, you know, it's like anything. It's like, hey, saw you guys over here. You look like the most fun group in this whole place. I had to say hi. You know, what are you guys celebrating? Or, you know, I saw you sitting over here. You thought you looked really, really pretty. Had to say hi. You know, what have you been up to today? You know, and that's it. If you want to get, you know, fancy, or you feel like you're not ready for such a direct approach, you use a little bit of humor. Right. One of the things you can do is look at the environment and play with the environment. You know, so if you looked at my screen, I mean, we don't really have good, you know, being on Zoom, it's a little bit hard here, but if you saw my screen here, you know, you walked up to me and you know, or even if we were online, you know, you can say something about like a misinterpretation, or you can accuse someone of doing something, right? You can be like, oh, did you take the last Brussels sprouts? I saw that it was empty over there. You ate all the Brussels sprouts I wanted, right? Or even here, you can be like, you know, is that is that Jeff Bezos's rocket? What is that? Oh, is that a microphone? Okay, that's a microphone. Just making sure, So being able to use the environment. So before you say hello, look at them, look at what they're wearing, look at the situation around them. But just again, that direct thing is, this is what I saw and this is what I thought. I saw you standing over there, thought you had a few minutes to chat, wanted to introduce myself, right? And that's it. Yeah. A really, this is kind of a ninja trick. Is let someone know they looked approachable. Be like, hey, I saw you. If you don't know who they are, you're just like, hey, you looked really approachable. I wanted to say hi. No one's ever gonna be like, approach, get out. No one's gonna be upset at that.
I wasn't trying to be approachable. I want everyone to think I'm a jerk.
It just exactly.
Yeah.
And so it gives you permission and them permission at the same time with saying, if they look approachable, make sure it's honest. These shouldn't be canned lines, right? If they look open and we don't like canned lines.
And I do like the idea of being very direct, which can be very challenging, especially if you're more shy. But one of the things about that is when somebody does approach you, often the question in your mind is, what do they want? What's the agenda here? What's happening? And if you walk up to a person you find attractive and you say, I thought you were attractive and I wanted to say hi. Well, your agenda's right out there on the table. And they can now respond. They can be like, I appreciate the compliment. I'm married, or, thank you. That's very nice of you to say, or whatever, or, I know you're the CEO of XYZ company, and I believe you'd be a great person for me to know. And I just want to take the opportunity to introduce myself and see if you think I'm a good person for you to know. And they're probably going to laugh and be like, well, I am a pretty great person to know. But it puts the agenda out there. Yeah, they're not sitting there wondering, like, is he trying to curry favor because he knows I'm a CEO and he thinks I'm a good person? No, or something else. No, you just said it right there. Here's what I want, and you've got it, and I'd like to talk to you about it. And now there's no mystery as to what's going on there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's amazing. The truth will set you free. People, a lot of times students, they ask a question and I'll be like, well, what's the intention? And they'll say this, and I'll be like, tell them that. Right. And that can be with exiting a conversation, right? Like a lot of people get, you go to a networking event and then you're kind of nervous. So you find one person that looks a little like alone also, or lonely or bored. And so you start talking to them, and then you get stuck in that conversation after you're warmed up and you're stuck there, and you both kind of want to leave probably and go talk to other people, but you've been talking for 15 minutes, right? So people ask, how do I get out of that? Well, tell them the truth. Be like, hey, it's been great talking. I promised myself I'd go talk to 5 people tonight at least. So, I'll see you. Got to go do the networking thing, but I'll see you. Hope you have a great night. Yeah. It's like, use the truth. A lot of people will be like, no, just say you have to go to the bathroom, and go to the bathroom, and you don't have to. And then, you have to go to the stall and like sit and, whatever, and fake the whole bathroom process, which,
and then somebody notices you've been to the bathroom 9 times. That's yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the truth, man. It's the best.
The little white, I think, if anyone's ever watched sitcoms, you see little white lies stack on each other, and suddenly you've got this whole narrative you're trying to maintain for no reason.
Exactly.
And if you're just like, hey, I'm going to go get another glass of wine, or I'm going to get some more.
Right. And then someone's holding like 15 wines.
But if that's what you want, if you're sitting there be like, man, I really want to get back out of that open bar and get another glass of wine. Well, just say, I want to get another glass of wine. It's been great talking to you. Exactly. Instead of being like, oh, I need to go to the faucet and turn off the oven.
Right. And it's funny because people love that because they're probably thinking the same thing, right? They're probably, a lot of the times they're like, oh, good, like, cool. We both kind of exchanged business cards and went through our thing. Like, cool. Like, yeah, I feel like doing that too.
Yep.
Right. We'd be surprised. So,
and talk a little bit about, I want to talk a little about small talk, because some people feel like small talk's a waste of time. I just want to get to the point and have serious, important conversations. And other people think that small talk's very valuable for rapport building. So talk a little bit about small talk and if it's useful and how to make it useful in conversation.
Yeah. Small talk is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what small talk actually does is calibrate you to, or 3 or 5 or whatever. Number one, it's going to show the normal, the level of communication style the other person has, or the level of communication skill the other person has. You want to make sure that, hey, the first thing we want to satisfy is this person is not a threat. Right. And so kind of small talk is to be like, okay, they know the social norms. They know what's appropriate. Okay. So you're testing out like appropriateness. And then small talk is also super useful to plant some of the seeds that you can use later. Like we use the example of, you being James Bond, right? And so, or whatever it might be on top of a building. So we can plant these small things that we can use as callback, because if you go straight to business, you're gonna have no color to add into that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then small talk's also cool to build wide rapport, because otherwise it's going to feel too much like a test. Right. You walk in and you're like, hey, do you like fintech? Yes or no? Right. It's getting to the point of what you do and seeing if they can help you. There's people are way more complex than that. So small talk wants to help us feel all those other directions consciously and subconsciously to see if there's any other paths. Right. Because you might find some similarities. All of us, you thought you were going to go in and talk about finding a business partner, but you found out that you guys went to the same high school, and that you had a great time in high school and you want to relive that, right? And so you can find these other little paths that are usually worth creating connections over.
Yeah. And also, and small talk is also a great path to the big talk. Instead of just jumping straight into business, if you small talk around a bit, I've found very often in the casual part of the conversation, they'll reveal some problem that I would have had no idea they had, and I'm able to offer them a solution to that. And now I'm way up ahead, in not points per se, but I'm ingratiated to them because they have some challenge. I'd be like, oh, have you met Bob over there? Because that's definitely someone you need to talk to if that's something you're working on. And now they're like, oh wow, he's already made an introduction for me. How cool is that? How can I help you?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You find out you find out more information, and there's a lot more to go on. And also we're reading people, we're reading eyes, we're reading body language, we're reading vocal tonality. So it lets us kind of acclimate to each other a little bit more and the energy level. So
yeah. And so people who are getting into a conversation, they haven't had the time to practice. They're still kind of new. If they were to remember one thing from this, like one set of questions to carry in their back pocket to get the conversation going, what do you find are some of the best conversation starting questions?
Well, I like asking, what's been interesting to them in that event, or what's been the most exciting part of X that you've seen so far, right? Like if you're at a Halloween party coming up, right, be like, what's been the best decoration that you've seen so far? What am I missing? So it puts them in a position of giving advice, which raises them up a little bit. It puts them as like the insider helping you, right? Okay. So it's kind of like Benjamin Franklin's move, which was ask for a little help first, ask for a little advice, and it doesn't need to mean that you're lowering your status and like needing help. But if you ask for someone's kind of opinion on what's going on, they'll feel good helping you. Make it a cool question though, like what was the best thing about tonight, or if you see them holding a drink, like what's the best drink you recommend? That can be a good way of turning things to where they feel more comfortable with you. You're humbling yourself in a way.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, and you're totally right. If you ask like, this is a great spread here, have you tried it? What's your favorite thing? Right. You're not putting yourself below them. You're just saying like, I want your advice on the food.
exactly.
Yeah, because I respect it. And yeah, and again, who doesn't like talking about that? Talking about
Right.
their own opinions and what they like.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's a good starting point. Any other kind of go-to kickoff lines?
Truth always,
Mhm.
what you see. We've actually so when we were writing our class, we went to the extreme with these things, and we should still do this and teach this, but we literally say such precise, specific things that were not normal. Like we'd be like, "Hey, I really like your face. How's your night going?" Right? It would be like, "Wow, I love your hair." That one's pretty common, but things that you see, you can let them know how you're feeling. And then I like accusing people. I personally like that. Accusing someone of doing something or planning something, like I'm trying to think of a good example. Like I remember at like bars, right? If someone would like they would be like hogging the hooks underneath the bars with all their jackets or purses, right? I'd pull back and accuse them of being like the hook mafia, like, what do I got to do to get a hook around, just accusing them of some character, pinning something on them. And then people would laugh. And then I always ask, what's been great tonight? What have you been up to? And people love talking about that. And so.
Yeah. And the absurd accusation is always a fun one too.
Right. Exactly. Absurd accusations.
So like the person who has like a plate with 3 chips on it, that you come and be like, "Oh man, you're taking all the food there."
Right. There
like,
you go.
Did you leave any for the rest of us?
Yeah, I like that.
They hardly have anything. Like, did you leave any for the rest of us? Or the person who's not talking too much, who said 2 words, and bringing them into the conversation with like, "Eric, come on, you're hogging the whole conversation here. Let's everyone else talk." When they haven't spoken at all. Yeah, those are great. Some great moves there.
And actually I just had a student who that exact situation came up with the best. He said the best thing. So there was actually someone trying. So something that we teach also is conversational jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Where if someone's not very nice to you.
Oh.
Right. And so the way you did it was fun and playful, but we had a student who actually was told, and we were practicing this all week, and he had kind of a jerky guy who turned to him and basically said, what was it? It was like something along the lines of, you don't talk enough, right? Or you're be like, wow, you're so quiet, but it was in a mean way, right? It was in a mean way. And he actually he just had this strong body language and eye contact, and he was like, well, someone's got to do all the listening. And it was and we all just erupted. So that just reminded me of kind of the social jiu-jitsu stuff. But you can get really good at coming up with those things. And we have a lot of word games, and it's, not very different from some improv type style games. And so coming up with these things in different angles.
I think what's brilliant about that social, conversational jiu-jitsu there is that what he said wasn't intrinsically offensive. He wasn't saying, and it's I statements is a really powerful way to do that. Instead of saying you don't listen, it's somebody has to listen or do listening, or I'm doing listening. Or so if it wasn't meant offensively and he responds that way, he didn't just start a fight.
Right.
Instead of continuing one. But if it was meant offensively, it's enough to kind of jostle the conversation back in place without making it awkward. Because if you come back hard at someone, then everyone else is like,
oh shit, right.
Okay.
It makes everybody uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of maneuvering that in, and again, pulling out, using some humor and having fun with it is always a great tool there.
Yeah.
And so speaking of your gym, I believe that you have a gift for our VIPs, those who have gotten the VIP package. So tell us a little about what you're offering for them.
Yes, only for you. We haven't ever given such a long period of a free trial, or at least of being able to try it out. So we literally have, we do a couple things. We have our cohort-based course, which is a 6-week course, and then we have our online gym, right? And so they go hand in hand and work really well together. But I would love for anyone who's interested, they could try our gym for 30 days. And
Wow.
they can they would get a lot of different sessions, and we rotate in sessions. They can do exercise. So basically, we have recorded videos that teach you the exercises, which are the conversational skills. And then we have times where we all meet up with a guided coach and instructor, and we go in breakout rooms and Zoom, and we just practice it just like a workout, kind of like a dojo, where we're like, it would be like me and you going back and forth with specific conversational games.
That sounds
So
awesome.
I'd love, yeah, if anyone is interested, come say hi, and would love to see you on those.
Well, that's great. Yeah. So anyone who's gotten the VIP pack already, they can go in and get that in the VIP pack. And if they haven't yet, it's not too late. If you're watching this video, you can still get it. And it sounds like 30 days in your gym is worth the price of admission for the VIP pack right there. So that is an amazing thing, getting to have that practice, because so often you learn things and you're like, okay, cool. Now what? And it would be like, if you learned a karate move and the first time you had to use it was on the street, it's a little aggressive. So getting to practice it and drill and having that time to try it out, get it wrong a few times in practice where it's safe, so you have it confident when you're actually going out there and doing it, sounds amazingly powerful. And do you have one final lesson you want to leave people with? One thing, if they only remember one thing from this talk, what's the one thing that they should carry with them when they next have to encounter people in the world or online, next time they're in a conversation?
Yes. My one piece of advice would be slow everything down. Slow down your movements, create a little bit of pause between a few words. Don't be afraid to move slower, right? Pretend like you're in like a swimming pool of honey, because then nerves will bring you up to normal speed.
Yep.
But slow down. You'll spill stuff less, you'll say stupid things less, and you'll have a little bit more time to think about what you want to say. And you'll come across a little bit more, stoic and poised and mysterious even.
I like that. And for anyone who's watching, if you want to like rewind a minute or so to right after I asked that question, because I had not actually told Eric that I was going to ask him for the one big takeaway. And so you notice when I asked the question, he paused for a second and then said yes, and then paused for another second and then gave the answer. Because obviously, Eric, you're an expert in this field. You clearly, I knew you were going to have an answer, but you bought yourself time to come up with a good answer and to explain it well. And people watching can do the same thing when you get that question. That there's all those tools like the yes. That's a good question. I'm glad you asked that question. I just bought like 5 seconds right there to think about what I'm going to say.
Now you can think about what you're going to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oftentimes you feel like you're on the clock. Oh my God, I got to answer. And you can slow that down and control the pace.
Yeah, you see great speakers like Obama, just high status, and he knows the world is going to wait, right? Mm-hmm. And so we always say conversation is like music, where it's not only about the notes, but about the spaces and beats and silence in between. Don't be afraid of silence.
Love that. That is great. That is some fantastic advice. So if nothing else, you don't remember anything else from this, slow down, and you can control the pace, and you'll even come across as more wise.
Right. Yeah, I don't know why, but whenever I'm around that Michael guy, I just feel so calm and cool.
I do try. Well, Eric, has been fantastic having you here. I know I've learned a lot, and I'm sure that our viewers have as well. And of course, they should absolutely get the VIP upgrade if they haven't already, to get that month in the gym, a month in the Jaunty Gym. That's got to be an incredible experience for anyone who does that. So thank you so much for generously offering that and for sharing so much of your knowledge.
Of course, anytime. Thank you for having me, Michael. And saying hi to everyone on the summit. Hope everyone's having a great time, and hope to see you guys soon.